Now I'm going to demonstrate the lock and drop technique for clearing a double feed, and then we'll slow it down into the micro steps. Next, let's talk about the lock and the drop technique for clearing the double feed. Lock and the drop, we're going to lock the slide to the rear. Note that it is almost already there by nature of the double feed. By locking the slide to the rear, what we're doing is removing the pressure that is binding up that top round of the magazine up on the feed ramp, which should allow that magazine to fall freely. When the mag comes out, you'll note that that round fell out of the chamber because that was a dummy round. Replicate that that was an unfired cartridge. When we nose it up, it's going to fall straight out. All we have to do is nose it up or give a little jiggle, and it should fall freely. If that's the case, all we have to do is ensure that top round is seated, insert the magazine, and then treat it as if it was a slide lock reload, and then get right back into the engagement. However, if you recall, what I mentioned previously is that more often than not, what I've observed is that that round that's in the chamber is a spent casing. The round that was in the chamber fired, which as a result of that, the brass case expands to fit the contours of the chamber walls. When that occurs, you nosing the gun up, and no matter how much you jiggle that booger, it's not going to fall out. It is fire formed to fit the contours of the chamber. Hence, when the slide goes forward and it grabs the lip of the case, that's what's going to extract it. With the lock and the drop technique, we're locking it to the rear, but when we remove that magazine, since we're uncertain, and more likely than not, it's not going to be a round that just falls out, we must do something with the magazine that's in our hand. Either put it back into your mag pouch, put it into a pocket, or hook it in a finger so that you can then rack the slide. When we rack the slide, there's no arbitrary amount of racks to it. When you see whatever is in the chamber fling out, that's good enough. Reinsert the magazine. Spent casing extracted and ejected. Now I can take the magazine that was hooked in my finger, reinsert it, and then rack it again to load that next round. As you can see, that takes a little bit more time and effort, plus it takes a little bit of juggling skills if you're going to hook that magazine in one hand or another and not drop it. If you do drop the magazine as part of this and you're in the fight for your life, don't worry about picking it back up. If you have a spare, go straight to the spare, get that sucker in, and then get back into the fight. If that is the only magazine you have, then please, for the love of God, when you squat down to recover that magazine, do a quick glance lateral into the rear before you jack in the box back up and your head is now on somebody's front sight post because somebody else is attempting to engage the threat that you just took a pause to fix your double feed. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right, so the double feed is restaged. Now we're going to go through it slow and by the numbers for the lock and drop technique. As with any of the malfunction drills, the very first step is always to remove your finger from the trigger, high index it on the frame or the slide. As we're bringing it back into our workspace, we're going to now lock the slide to the rear, drop the magazine. In the same fashion as we already discussed with the other technique, that top round is going to be protruding just an itty bit, so we're going to put pressure on the front of that to reseat it so it doesn't cause us any drama later on. The next step is to release the slide, and then rack it again in hopes that what was in will fling out. If it doesn't fling out the first time, you continue to rack it until you see it fling out of the gun. Once it is out, then we reinsert the magazine. Now we have the magazine in the gun, but we have an empty chamber, which necessitates us racking it again, which will reset that master grip high up into the web of the gun, and then we reacquire our two-handed grip and we continue firing.